welcome to the Jefferson Rogers podcast. We got a special guest today, and our first guest, actually, besides my boys, Blake and J-Rod, we got Dave Allred in the house.
Yeah.
What's up, guys? Good to be here. Thanks for the invitation. Appreciate it.
Hell yeah. Absolutely.
Dude, excited to have Dave.
Oh, we've been itching for this, man. This is first guest, dude. This is quite an honor because we're going to take this to the top. This is going to be a big one.
Yep, this will be a day to remember. Our first guest, and we'll have Dave back on after we've gone through a number of other guests as well. Okay, so Dave's got a background similar to what we do here at JKR Windows in door-to-door sales. Did Vivint for 17 years. 17 years, and you've been clear of that for, what, 2 years now?
I retired about 3 years ago. So
3 years.
Originally, it was going to be a 4-month summer in Chicago, so they recruited me out for, right? And somehow it turned into a 17-year-long career. But it's been an incredible opportunity. Been a fun experience. Learned
Must
a lot.
have had something fun to show back up to every year.
Yeah, it was, we'll get more into it, I'm sure, in the podcast, but just the growth opportunity. I mean, there's nothing more real than going out and knocking a door to go solicit business and closing that deal. It's just, that's as real as it gets when it comes to sales. And from a personal growth standpoint and the skills you learn, those are invaluable skills in life, right? So really grateful for that, but never would have expected it was going to turn into 17 years doing that. So it was actually 1 year with Pinnacle Security, and then I met the owner of Apex Vivint, and so started out with them for 15 years, and then the last 2 years with a sister company called Vivint Solar.
So you finished strong with solar because you were, was it security systems for most of the career?
Yep. I think it was 15 years doing alarms, home security sales, and then the last almost 3 years doing solar. So,
right on.
I've never sold Windows like you fellas. Right?
Yeah, it's kind of a niche.
Yep.
It's kind of a niche.
Kind of
There's
a
lots
different
of door-to-door stuff with security and alarms and
pest control,
roofing, solar.
Dave, you can maybe riff on this for a second, but it kind of feels like it's like there's a little bit of carnal instincts to it. It's like we're going out and we're actually hunting for our food, we're going out. There's nothing out there, and we go make it happen.
Absolutely.
It's eat what we kill, right?
Yeah.
You literally go out and you create the business. And in my opinion, it's actually capitalism at its finest. I mean, it's literally somebody has to learn the skill sets, go out there, solicit a customer, and create enough value, walk them through that entire sales process, be able to close a deal, to be able to earn a commission, right? And it's really only if it's a win-win situation, both for the customer, well, really a win-win-win for the company, for the rep, and for the customer, right? And so, like I said before, I mean, that's really where the rubber meets the road, and there's nothing, in my opinion, that's more not only difficult, but also valuable of a skill set to be able to learn, to be able to go out and create that kind of business, right? And what I've found over the years is that there's really 3 skill sets that are really the money maker in the door-to-door sales industry. And most people think it's just salesmanship, right? And that is maybe the foundational skill set. It's really important. But in my opinion, really it's about salesmanship. It's about recruiting, the ability to be able to recruit other people into the opportunity and therefore multiply your value creation. And then the third one is people development or management, right? And it's the ability to go out and actually manage people and show them how to do what you do. And so, when you combine those 3 skill sets together, that's where the real magic happens. In my opinion, I have a whole training on, it's called, the 3 skill sets for 7-figure income. And if you can become great at those 3 skill sets, that's going to create so much value in the market. And as we know, money follows value, right? Money follows value creation. And so if you can not only be a good salesperson, but a good recruiter and also a good manager or people development, those 3 skill sets. I've just seen, and a lot of guys are good at 1 or maybe even 2 of those, but if you can become great at all 3 of those, that's where the real magic happens. And so, but yeah, I've been really grateful for it, man. I never thought I was going to get into sales. In fact, I wanted to be a professional firefighter, growing up, and then I wanted to become a financial advisor. That was my career path. Studied international business, and then they had a recruiting booth set up, and I met these guys.
You
going
still
out to
have
Chicago.
a passion for that these days.
Yeah, I still love that, man. It's something that we never talked about finances in my family growing up. There was never a conversation about investing or finances or any of that, And so when I got off of a 2-year service mission, I was out in Peru for 2 years, came back, was going to Snow College, and had an opportunity. There's a recruiting booth set up there for Pinnacle Security to go out to Chicago and sell security. Jumped into that, made $32,000 that year, which for me was like life changing. To me, that was such an incredible experience. They made like $295 an account, which in hindsight is like peanuts, right? Like it's the margins today are 3 to 4 times that. But at the time, I was just grateful for the opportunity, and came back and I was able to buy an Isuzu Rodeo with the chrome rim package on it. So I was down, balling at, down there at Snow College.
In Rodeo.
In Manti,
with the Rodeo.
Yep.
Yep. And and I was able to pay for my college tuition and whatnot, and then came back the next year. Was offered a sales management position, and made a lot better income that next year, 6 figures, and then I was like, hey, I got to figure out what to do with this capital, and also how to pay how to be effective in my tax strategy, and that really led to me just committing to becoming a student of the game of money, how to master this game of financial management, and it's been a fun journey, man. It's something that I just really committed to, and read a lot of books, a lot of mentors, masterminds, a lot of focus on how to be effective with that. I look at finances as it's like a chessboard, right? And your capital are these little chess pieces, and it's about being strategic in how you operate and how you move those pieces around.
And you've helped me out a ton with that over the last year and a half since we met. And one of the things that comes from being organized with your finances and having a game plan and having goals is then being able to deploy your assets once you have that structure in place towards some other things that get you a little bit further along in life. So what about the real estate game?
Yeah, love the real estate game. When I was about 12 years ago, I asked my CPA, I'm like, hey, so what are your most wealthy clients doing that I'm not doing? And he said, Dave, all of my wealthy clients are either doing real estate or they own businesses or they're doing both. And that really resonated with me. I'm like, hey, I want to figure this out. If that's what those guys are doing, then how can I do that as well? And so, jumped into real estate. I don't know how much you want me to go into depth on this, but the real estate's been awesome. I mean, it started out as a side hustle for me back in 2007. It's my first rental property that I acquired. And it was first of many. I've learned a lot along the ways, and originally it was just a side hustle, right? It was something I wanted to take my active income, move it over into something that would create passive income, and it grew into a real passion of mine. And luckily with the door-to-door job, I was able to make great active income, and luckily I was able to deploy that into these real estate projects. And it started out with a few condos, townhomes, and a fourplex, and then it turned into 17 fourplexes. And then I got to the point like, okay, I need to start doing something bigger than this. So I started looking at apartments, large multifamily, jumped into that space, and did several of those. And then I was like, hey, what's the next step from here? And the next step for me was to start doing syndications. And syndication is basically where you take an opportunity, you do the due diligence, you find a really good opportunity, and then you invite your friends and other people to come into the deal with you so you can take down a bigger project. And so I've done over a dozen syndications all over the country, land development, multifamily, self-storage, etc. And from there, now lately it's been, okay, what's the next step? And because for me, my life, one of my goals in my life is to always be doing bigger deals than yesterday. It's just a guiding principle of mine. Garmin has the hashtag beat yesterday. I love that one. And so it's always about doing a bigger deal and bigger opportunities than I did yesterday. And so as I look at my real estate portfolio, so it was condos, townhomes, then it was fourplexes, then it was apartments, then it was syndications. And the next big step for me is the fund model. And so we actually just launched a real estate fund, a national fund, about a month and a half ago. Really excited about this one. We're focused on apartments, self-storage, and RV.
I saw you guys been traveling all over the place looking at properties.
Yep. We just got back from Pennsylvania, looking at a lot in Texas, Tennessee, etc. Arizona. You know, the states we're looking at are Texas, Nashville, or Tennessee, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Kansas, Arizona, Utah, Idaho, and
all
Nevada.
the hot states.
It's really two things. It's where we have the net migration trends. People are moving from the East Coast, West Coast, over to more, you know, where, for a lot of reasons, right? But there's a big net migration going on right now. And secondly, it's the states where there's less, you know, they're basically red states, and so there's less government control or intervention. You know, there's rent controls, there's eviction moratoriums. Those things really worry me because those are things outside of my control, right? The government comes in and says they're going to control those things, and that has a real impact on our investment thesis and how we operate. So, but anyway, yeah, just going back to that. So it's all about doing bigger deals as you operate and as you go. And it's also about creating opportunity for other people. I've loved, you know, syndications are fun because I can actually bring in, you know, 5 to 25 different investment partners into those deals. For example, you jumped in on our last one last year. We did a big $20 million project in Kansas City. And Jefferson here was about to put some money into a different fund with Uncle G.
Yeah.
And
I was damn close to pulling the trigger on that. I'm glad I didn't.
I think you're like 2 days away, right, from that.
Yep.
And so that was a really awesome kind of opportunistic timing with that conversation. We started talking about multifamily and maybe some better ways of approaching that. But
And when does the have you guys completed all the funding for the Axia Fund?
no, we're currently about somewhere around halfway. So we launched this last month, right? And we're already somewhere around halfway subscribed on it.
Okay.
And then, I mean, verbally, we're probably oversubscribed. A lot of people have expressed interest, but we base that off of when we receive subscription documents.
So you're going, like when we did the $20 million deal, that was $20 million combined, and we only had to come up with a certain portion of that. Now the $20 million is you're coming up with the whole $20 million up front.
Yeah, that last one was a $20 million total takedown.
Yeah.
And so we only came in with about 5 to 6 million of capital. On this fund, it's actually a $20 million equity raise, which will allow us to deploy about $65 million in total with leverage.
That's big time.
Let's go.
So the next one then, you keep talking about doing bigger and bigger deals. So I imagine the next one is going to be substantially bigger.
Correct. Yeah, fund number 2, and this is all, you know, it's not locked and loaded, but the idea is we'll be a $50 million fund for the next fund, and then a $100 million fund. Personally, my goal is to have $1 billion of assets under management by 2025. So that's what I'm personally shooting for with the fund.
Wow.
But we want to start on the first one, just being, you know, conservative, being nimble, being small enough to make sure that we can be really opportunistic in our approach and really prove our investment thesis.
And the reason I ask is because I've got some money sitting on the sideline. I haven't gotten a phone call yet that the money's coming out.
I will. I'll have my people reach out to you and follow up on that one for sure. Then.
And then another thing that's interesting about this is, I mean, real estate is hot right now. Not only in the door-to-door industry and sales guys, but I mean, everywhere I go, people are talking about real estate. I was at a dinner last night, one of the $100 dinner clubs, and everybody's talking about real estate. They're from all different walks of life. So the cool thing about this fund model that you're doing for me and the syndications also and being a limited partner is, you know, you've been retired now 3 years from Vivint, and that was your focus. I mean, you've taken all those years of earning active income and creating a portfolio over those first 10 years of doing real estate. Now you can focus 100% of your time. But there's some of us that are still in those beginning stages of building and creating our skill sets to be able to earn a high level of active income. So for me, being able to deploy that active income somewhere where I'm not going to have to put a lot of attention. I did take a trip out to Kansas City, which was a great time. Learned a lot. Learned from a couple of guys between you and Jason Harris that, you know, are great guys to learn from. And that's super valuable in my ability to make an educated decision. But for me to spend the amount of time that you do, traveling the country and doing due diligence and doing the research and the spreadsheets, I mean, it's just not even feasible right now. I want to do that, but JKR Windows active income is like 100% focus because that's kind of my personality. So talk a little bit about that little aspect.
Yeah, so, you know, it's a real heavy responsibility when you take on your friends' capital, right? So I have over 100 different capital partners, and they're all my friends. It's my social network. You know, I don't go out and take institutional money or a lot of, you know, home office money and whatnot. It's actually just my friends. I've always loved the concept that who you do life with, or who you do business with, is who you do life with naturally,
100%.
right? And like, why would I want to partner with random people as capital partners when I could go and create value for my friends, for my family, for for you, for people that I actually care about? And so, to me, it's a beautiful thing. A lot of people are like, "Hey, aren't you worried?" And they're very nervous about doing business with family. To me, it's the other way around. Like, hey, why would I not want to be able to create value for these people that are important to me in my life? And so, the second thing I'd say there is, I've learned a long time ago that when the deal's really good, people always worry about finding the money for the deal. I've found that if the deal's good enough, the money's actually easy. The key is finding the great deals. So it's more about, sourcing good deals and then doing great due diligence and making sure the opportunity is right. But once I feel confident the opportunity is right, why would I not go to share with people, with other people, right? And so,
Absolutely.
And it creates, opportunity for me, and it creates a real win-win situation. And so, but going back to your question, like an LP versus a GP. So an LP is a limited partner, and that's where you're coming in as a passive investor. Literally, your responsibility is just to write it. You make your commitment. You write you send your wire, your check in, and that's pretty much the extent of your responsibility on it, right? On the opposite side, you have a general partner, GP, and they're actually in charge of the whole process, right? So it's underwriting, it's finding the deal, it's guaranteeing the loan, it's managing the property, doing all the value-add improvements to the property, disposing of the asset, and there's a lot of work that goes into that for sure. Your question's a great question, though, because a lot of guys say, hey, I want to get into real estate, but I think a key question is, do you want to come in as a limited partner, being passive, or as a general partner where you're being active in your role? And it's an important distinction because there's a lot you can either way is a great opportunity, but a lot of guys have a really good thing going right now in their careers, right? For example, for you, right? JKR Windows, the fastest growing window replacement company in the country, right? And you have a lot of people that are looking for you for your leadership and for you to help them create value in their own lives and their careers. And so, is it responsible for you to take your eye off the ball and really learn the real estate game right now? Maybe not. Maybe it's investing passively with really good operators where you can learn and still observe, and you can be as involved as you want with our fund. In fact, with our fund, we our tagline is experiential investing.
That's what I love about it, man, is I can still be as involved as I want to because I have relationships with you guys. And if I wanted to jump on a plane and meet you guys somewhere, I know because I've talked myself into it before that you guys would let me do it.
Absolutely. That's part of it. So experiential investing. So our investors are welcome to come on our site visits, our due diligence. We kind of pull back the curtain. We want to be able to teach everyone how we do real estate. And I mean, there's so many guys. I get 5 to 10 DMs a day of you guys asking for help, advice. Want me to help on their first real estate venture. Asking for basically for help. And so I'm really excited about this approach we have. And so we're going to be doing monthly webinars for every one of our partners. We can jump on. We'll teach about real estate, different aspects. We'll have guest speakers coming in. Brandon Fugel is a big name here in Utah. #1 commercial broker. He's coming on as a strategic advisor for us. And so we'll have him on some of these calls. Adam Long, our fund manager, he is the COO of Colliers International, one of the largest brokerages in the world.
Yeah, the kid is sharp. He's 28 years old.
Yep.
And
Skipped
he
high
has got
school.
a backstory that is
amazing.
One of those that's straight for the books.
It's incredible. It's he's by far the smartest friend that I have by a long shot. So, but he's incredible. So, but this experiential investing. So we want to teach people. We want to help share knowledge. We want to really create value. And the name of the fund is Axia, AXIA. So Axia Partners, and the word Axia is Greek for value add. Right? And so it's about adding value for our partners, for our communities, and for our investors.
It's the same concept that you're using on most of your properties too, isn't it?
100%. So we're buying apartments, RV parks, and self-storage, and all of those are value-add opportunities. What that means is it means there's opportunity to go and improve the asset. So we buy an older, cash flow positive, but an older asset. We'll come in, we'll add better marketing, social media, online presence, search engine optimization, dog parks, solar panels, covered parking stalls, better amenities. One thing right now with the pandemic is there's a real need for work at home space, kind of like work. What do you call it? WeWork. So we're putting in WeWork type spaces in the clubhouses for these tenants. anyway, or it's just renovations, it's new paint, it's the, superficial things that make the asset look better. But going back to your question, it's all value add. So every one of our assets, and the reason why is because right now, the market's been so good for 12 years now in the housing market. It's irresponsible, in my opinion, to assume the market will continue to grow like it has and appreciate like it has. And so, and if it does, awesome. But if it doesn't, we're able to go and enforce that market appreciation through our improvements on the assets.
Dude, we could sit here and talk about real estate all day.
Dude, I love real estate, man. Hey, you asked the question.
I know. I knew I'd get you going. But I could get you going on the lifestyle design, too, because that's been an incredible experience for me, getting to know the spreadsheet and the actual journey of the lifestyle design, living by design, living with intention. And I've rolled that out to all my guys, too. So how about a little quick rundown on how you came up with that, how long you've been doing it, how many people you've shared it with, and what that means to you?
Lifestyle design. So this was something that I started doing about 10 years ago, and it was just a personal development system that I created. And it started from traveling across the country. I've managed, 120-something sales teams in 41 different states. And I'd always do these, what I call one-on-one performance interviews to see how guys are doing and, what their reason, what their motivation is, how I can help add value for them. And I always ask questions like, hey, man, why are you here? What's your holy cause? What's your why? What's your goals this summer? What do you really want to get out of this opportunity? And I was always surprised with people always give you, the first answer is quick. Hey, I want to be happy. I want to be rich. I want to be wealthy. I want to be successful. I want to, have my own family. I want to buy a home.
You got to do this with a lot of people over your 17 years.
Thousands, hundreds, if not thousands of guys. And so one thing I noticed was anytime I'd ask like a secondary or a third question, I'd dive deeper. Like, oh, cool. So you want to get a new home? Awesome. What's that home look like? How big is it? How many square feet? How much money do you need? And people's answers get really fuzzy and ambiguous really, really quick.
Yep.
Or somebody's like, yeah, I want to get a sports car. Oh, cool, man. Like, which one? Like, how much do you need? And guys don't even know that. And so, so I came to the conclusion that I want to have real clarity and purpose in how I approach my life, and so I started writing down a spreadsheet and began with just a simple spreadsheet that said, hey, what do I want from my life? What are the outcomes that I really want? And it's grown into 10 sections. And so it's the 10 sections that I feel are really important to have a fulfilled, balanced, successful, purposeful life. And
how often do you look at those?
Well, originally it was probably once a month. Now I'd say it's about once a month to at least once a quarter. Mm-hmm. So I've got it pretty well internalized at this point.
And you could rattle off all 10 of those right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's easy. It's the end goal. So my mission statement. It's my health, my family, my time, finances, business, relationships, spiritual, memories, and experiences. There you go.
Love that, man.
And so, so each one of those chapters, if you will, I've outlined what exactly how I define success within that area of my life. Mm-hmm. And then so I have basically a definition of what I want to accomplish, and then also what are the key habits that I'm committed to make sure that I get the outcomes that I want inside of that, right? I think that motivation is temporary. Motivation is fleeting. It's just an emotion. And so what really drives long-term results is habits. So I would challenge everybody listening to this podcast, motivation's fine to take some action, but what's going to make a real difference in your life long-term is habits that you choose to subscribe to. And so I basically have the outcomes that I want, and I have the habits that I'm committed to, and it's all in writing. And this is it's a living document, so it's always evolving. If I go to a conference, I listen to a podcast, or I hang out with somebody I mentor, right? I might come back like, hey, I want to incorporate what that guy's doing in this area of his life.
Absolutely.
And so what I found is if I don't write things down, then I forget about it. I've got terrible long-term memory, I guess, and so I've got to write things down. And a mentor of mine a long time ago said, Dave, a goal that's not written down is a dream, right? And so, but by writing down your goals, then you can hold yourself accountable. You can measure your success. And so I highly recommend that it's not just something in your mind, but it's something you actually write down. There's some science out that says that just by the simple fact of writing down your goals leads to a 42% improved probability of hitting that goal. Just simply writing it down.
If I had to guess, I would say you probably have reverse engineered how you're going to get to 1 billion in assets under management.
100%.
That's big time. That's
Thanks,
big time,
man. I appreciate it. With the lifestyle design, though, it's something it was never meant to be shared. You asked like how many I've shared it with. I've actually only shared it with a very limited amount of people. It was never meant to be a product or something to distribute, but I have had really good response from the guys I have shared it with, my friends, my brother, my family, a few others, yourself as well, some of my executive consulting clients. And so, if anybody wants a copy of that, they're welcome to hit me up on Instagram or Facebook. Dave Allred, pretty easy to find. Allred, Allred. I'd say I'm most active on Instagram. So if anyone wants that, shoot me a DM. But
it's made a big impact in my life. Me and my wife go over it at least once a month, and we try and do it more because we're also implementing a lot of the ideas that you've given us, doing weekly meetings and power hours, and it's a game changer, man. And it took my goal setting from doing, writing some goals and having some big, hairy, audacious goals to getting really specific on what it looks like to be able to accomplish those. And for the first time in my life, hearing the phrases like reverse engineer your goals, and it was like,
You came and talked to us up, and we were in Logan, churning and burning, and that was the first time I've heard about your lifestyle kind of thing, and that it was extremely intriguing. So on that note, since we're talking about habits, you had to kind of develop the habit to write it down, right? And to even look at it once a quarter is what you're saying. So, I mean, what other habits, if we backtrack a little more, because a lot of the guys at JKR, I was like, hey, what kind of questions do you want me to shoot off at Dave? Since we're talking about habits, what were some early habits you developed when you were knocking doors for Vivint early on?
Early habits, I would say, would be really more just committing to being a lifelong student and being coachable. I think a lot of times as we start having success, people become, maybe it's ego, maybe it's whatever, but we end up not being very coachable. And so I made a commitment to always be a lifelong student. And so I love, reading books, audiobooks, being around other people and learning from other people and how they're approaching things, And yes, I'm proud of my lifestyle design, but at the same time, I've got a ton to learn still. I'm not even close. Sure. It's a living, evolving document, and I realize I'm proud of where I've gotten to, but I'm just getting started right now.
Yeah.
And so it's just being committed to that. One thing would be a habit would be when I'm driving, I love listening to music, but I committed to never listen to music in my vehicle. It's always an audiobook or a podcast, right? So I'm taking that information in. I had a chance to be with Ed Milet. I went to dinner last year, and one thing he said, it stood out to me. He said, Dave, we were at Morton Steakhouse, just kind of hanging out talking. He said, Dave, the difference between where you are today and where you're going to be and who you're going to be 12 months from now is really as simple as 3 things. It's who you're hanging out with, what you're listening to, and what you read. And when he said that to me, I'm like, okay, that's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. I get that. But the more I've kind of thought back on that, it's really powerful. Who we are today versus where we're going to be in the future, or who we're going to be in the future, is really just a matter of our circumstance. It's our environment, right? Yeah. It's what we're thinking about. It's who we're hanging out with. It's what we're putting into our mind. And so I just challenge everybody to make sure you're very cognizant of that, and you're choosing wisely with the type of people you're hanging out with. And because there's real power in proximity. Yeah. Right? And I've learned that throughout my career. When I'm around other people that are doing things on a higher level and a bigger level than me, it's really inspiring me because I can see the person like, hey, you know what? I'm a pretty competitive guy. Yeah. So I see the guy, I'm like, hey, I can do that. If he can do that, I can do that. And to me, that's been really impactful, being able to be around people that are operating at a really high level. And I have a long list of mentors, and some of them aren't even just natural mentors, or it's masterminds. It's people that I pay for that. It's real estate strategy coaches. It's being part. Having mentors that are doing those things that I really want. That are doing whatever it is. If it's $1 billion of assets under management, then I would say, okay, who's doing that? Who's the top 1% to 2% of people in that space? I'm going to seek those individuals out. I'm going to follow them and try to be as close as I can to them. Right on.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, we were talking about that the last episode, proximity to power, just being around the right people. And then, everyone's told you that, or everyone has said something like that. Almost every successful person I've ever met You know, show me your friends, and I'll show you where you're going to be in 5 years.
Most of your growth is going to come from those scary, uncomfortable, unknown moments, because I'd never been there before, never made a big decision like that before. But 2 weeks later, I'm walking up to Dave's house doing a selfie video, like with my heart beating out of my chest again, nervous as shit. Like, look at this house. This is ridiculous. I just spent $60,000, and we're starting a journey right now that led us to doing $10.4 million with an original goal that year, starting out with a small mindset of only doing $4 million, and we grew by 500% instead.
That's awesome, man.
Well, I agree 100% there. I mean, a lot of the times when I've invested into a group, a mastermind, whatever else, it's actually an ecosystem of other like-minded people that are on the same, you know, and they're willing to pay to become better and for that proximity. And so sometimes a lot of my opportunities in my life have come from those groups because I was at the table. I was in the room, right? But Jefferson, for you, man, I just want to say I'm super proud of what you've done. It's been awesome seeing that. Just in the last year and a half or so from that first time we met together, seeing your progression, your journey, you know, you've really, you know, lived the whole 10X mentality of just going big, right? So being comfortable, being uncomfortable is actually a very valuable skill set. Maybe that's from, you know, doing what I did, you know, knocking doors and, you know, being in Peru for 2 years. Some of those things are really challenging, you know, but I always try to be outside my comfort zone. Did a Mount Everest expedition in 2018. You know, skydiving 8 times.
How's the training going for the Ironman?
The Ironman. So I committed to doing an Ironman with the Iron Cowboy here in about 2-3 months from now. And honestly, it's been really, really hard to find the time to be able to commit to do that, to prepare for it. And I mean, Ironman, that takes a real commitment. I'm doing a lot right now. The swim scares the crap out of me, man. Like, I'm a terrible swimmer, and I'm working on it. You
gonna go for it?
Absolutely. So
that's incredible.
I'm not. I'm saying. I mean, I'm going for it. I'm gonna have 17 hours to complete. So for the record, I've swam 300 meters. Is the most I've ever swam, and this is 2.4 miles, which is 60 times more.
60 times more?
Yeah, if I remember right, that's accurate. And then the bike, I biked about 50 miles, and the bike's, you know, over 100 miles, and then the run.
Wow.
I ran 7.5 miles. Is my record, and it's 26 miles. So I've got a lot of work to do still, but I'm working on that every morning and getting after it. So
if you don't do it though, you only owe him $5,000. So
well,
it'd be easy to back out.
It's
bro.
easy to justify, and that $5,000 goes towards towards Operation Underground Railroad.
Yeah.
And so I mean, it's like, hey, if I don't finish it, I'm actually helping the kids. So if I do finish it, I'm like taking away from these kids that need this $5,000, right?
Way to rationalize.
It's the way to rationalize it in my mind, right? I'm like, so it's like, should I be charitable and not do it, or should I go do this really, really hard thing? But
I say you go for it, dude.
I actually
do both.
Don't tell Iron Cowboy, but I'm actually planning on doing it either way. So if I finish it, I think it'll still be fun to be able to, you know, donate that $5,000. So, but yeah, you know, just being uncomfortable, I think that's a really valuable thing. I feel like personal development comes from being on the fringe of your comfort zone, and so I intentionally try to live my life always being a little bit uncomfortable. And I know that sounds counterintuitive. Like, you know, human nature is to always take the path of least resistance. But I found that a lot of times the most opportunity comes from taking the harder path, right? So most people always take the easy path, and sometimes that's fine. But a lot of times by taking the more challenging path, that's where the opportunity lies. That's where the higher profitability in a real estate deal might lie. Maybe a deal has a little more hair on it, has something, some work has to go into it, or some value add. But therefore you have greater upside, you know. But the personal development that comes from doing the harder things in life is pretty incredible. You know, I've kind of just done everything that I've ever been scared of. There's only a few things I'm still scared of in my life, and one is like stand-up comedy has always scared me, and so I'm going to do it this year. I'm committed to it. And then open water swimming. I'm so bad at it that it's really, you know, it's hard for me. It stresses me out. So I'm doing this Ironman. And then my daughters, I've got 3 beautiful girls. Like, the idea of them dating scares me pretty bad too. I don't know what I'm going to do about that. I'm just going to have to take care of that a little later on down the road. So
you're going to have to deal with that pretty quick. You got a 15-year-old?
Yeah. 15 as of yesterday.
Wow.
Birthday. I have a large gun collection. I'm thinking I might just like tour that as people come over to date my daughters. You know, walk them through the gun, the armory, show them that. I don't know yet. Got to figure that one out. So,
Yeah.
But
Also,
challenging.
how much are you paying for me to come sit in on your stand-up comedy and I'll just laugh no matter what? What are
Yeah.
you paying? What's the rate?
And Blake will open for you too.
Let's talk offline on that one.
Okay,
I
yeah.
got to act like it's natural and authentic.
Oh,
So
yeah,
let's talk.
It'll be
let's
natural.
talk
I'll wear a disguise.
But hey, going back to lifestyle design, just real quick, I just want to mention this. I think that the real power behind that is to be able to live a life with intentionality. It's to have clarity. It's to have real purpose in how you operate. And, I found that a lot of people just have never really spent time to get clear on what that looks like. And there's real power in being able to envision something and really make it real in your mind. Call it law of attraction, call it whatever you want to call it. But if you know what you really want, the probability of hitting that is so much greater, right? Most people live life very reactively versus being proactive. And people make decisions based on emotion versus what's really the right decision a lot of times, okay? So if you have clarity with what your end destination is and you can visualize that, then the probability of you hitting that's so much greater. You're going to make decisions based on the ultimate outcome, not based on what's easier, what sounds fun, or what your emotions are telling you that day, right? And so, kind of a fun expression I say a lot is that I feel like most people spend more time planning out their annual vacation than they do planning out their actual life, right?
Absolutely. My family's doing that right now. They're like, hey, you're going to come to Hawaii with us? We got this thing. My dad's dropping some mad cheddar for it. And I'm like, no, I can't take a week off during that time. I've only allotted myself a weekend for that quarter, and I can't take a full week. And they can't understand that concept. And it's weird coming from me since I started working for Jeff, bumping into guys like you. I've been like really doubling down on, you mentioned it earlier, like holding yourself accountable. And that's what I've set out for me for this year. And so I'm not even thinking about a Hawaii trip with my family. Like, good for them. My dad's worked hard. Wants to take the family, but I'm like, hey, I still got to make mine.
It is, man.
So.
This is the season for growth. And the more uncomfortable situations you put yourself into, the faster you can accelerate your trajectory towards that ultimate version of yourself. So
I'd also add to that by having that clarity allows you to operate with more aggressively and more boldly. Like, I get a lot of opportunities. Guys want to do partnerships. There's 1,000 different opportunities out there, right? But because I know what I really want out of my life, I can make a pretty quick decision if an opportunity lines up with what I'm looking for or not. And it also allows me to be much more confident when I'm going and launching a new fund or taking down a $20 million asset in Kansas. To know, hey, does this resonate with me? Does it line up with my core values, with my guiding principles? Does it line up with my mission statement for my life? Does it line up with my investment philosophy? Does it line up with what I really want? Does this help fast track my personal goals? But a lot of times guys get these opportunities like, hey, well, it sounds cool. I don't know. And they make decisions, especially investments, more based on FOMO, like fear of missing out,
Sure,
or out of emotion. And I've found that in investing specifically, the higher the emotion, the lower the intelligence. Okay, and so when you go to make an investment decision, you don't want to do it based off of emotion, right? It should be based on, does this line up with what I'm trying to accomplish in my life? Does this align with my personal financial game plan? And so anyway, not to be a dead horse, but I feel like, that you can't overthink or put too much time into planning out your life and having a blueprint there. And so I just challenge, everybody to at least take some type of action forward. Maybe you see this 10-chapter lifestyle design, you're like, hey, that's way too much for me. Jefferson, when you first saw it, you're probably like, man, that's pretty intense. That's a lot of work, right? And so my challenge to you was, hey, you'll take at least 1 hour, every Sunday, and just, go deep on this and work on it.
It takes time. And it's the same thing with, I talk to my guys about this a lot that are, they're young, they're inexperienced, they haven't gained a high level of discipline yet. And they're, we have a tendency to compare ourselves to the other people around us. And it's not a healthy thing to do, because now they're like Bobby in particular. Like, one day he comes to me and he has this list of gigantic goals that he's saying he's going to do this month. And I was like, Bobby, listen, I understand you want to do big things and you're comparing yourself, and that's incredible. But you got to start somewhere first. You got to gain the skills. You got to develop the discipline, and it has to start in small little steps.
Yep.
To create some consistency and the discipline, and it builds, and you get confidence. Now you're keeping the promises to yourself over and over and over, and
Developing those habits.
And the habits are super important. Dave talked about it earlier.
Yep.
Yeah, and then you work up to Dave's level. I mean, you took the path you took, Dave, and like it's turned out well for you. I'm sure you've made some mistakes and had some setbacks and everything, like every human. But you just basically compounded over time your ability to, like, you know, think this way and make these types of deals and do this type of stuff. So,
You know, on that note, I think that, I call it a scarcity mentality versus an abundance mentality. And a lot of people go through life basically with the mindset that, hey, they are where they are and it is what it is. Like, this is where I'm at and this is what I'm here for. This is what I'm going to do. I think that takes the fun out of life. Like, to me, our greatest ability as humans is our ability to change. And to even, you know, and our decisions really do change our trajectory of where we're going in our lives. And but frankly, I think some people don't like accepting that responsibility of that abundance mentality, because ultimately, if you realize, hey, I'm in 100% control of my life, then what's that mean? That means you have to take responsibility for where you're at today.
yeah.
And some people don't want that. They want to blame it on their circumstances, their parents, how they grew up, right? Their financial situation. To me, that's all bullshit. Like, it's completely up to us. We have a lot more control in our lives than a lot of people give ourselves credit for. You know, Tony Robbins says that life happens for us, not to us.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. You know, I'm trying to teach my kids that right now. Actually, it's one of our family principles.
That's a hard thing to teach too. So it's great that you're doing that with the kids early on, because, I mean, we know a lot of people, and you get 20, 30, 40 years into your life, and you've never been exposed to that way of thinking, and you're still repeating those same patterns. That is a hard thing to get away from.
Yeah.
The victim mentality.
And it's like, I think it's a plague that's over the whole nation right now, whole world. Let's be honest. You know, it's like that JFK quote, you know, ask not what your country can do for you, ask rather what you can do for your country, right? But that's how it is. Like, what can you do for yourself? What abilities do you have? And it's really easy. I look back at times in my life where I was like that, and I'm not even anywhere near either of your levels currently, but I'm aspiring to get that way. But I had to shed all that stuff. It's like, man, I was really playing victim on a lot of things.
Yep.
Yeah.
But you got to be open to it first.
Sure.
Then you got to surround yourself with good people. You got to consume the good content, and then consistently, day after day, be able to recognize that negativity, the negative influences, the negative content, the negative people, and overpower it with the power of the positive mind and the growth mindset and the positive people and the positive influences.
Yeah.
Because it's never going to go away.
And I would add one more to that, which is you've got to embrace delayed gratification. I think a lot of people now, they have a real hard time with that. You know, it's called millennials, whatever, not to stereotype anybody, but the younger generation, and even as a country, we're getting away from delayed gratification. People want it now. They want to see instant results. They want to see the instant, you know, the dopamine. They want it now. And I feel like, you know, to have real to hit those big goals that you want, right? So that financial freedom and the personal growth and everything else, you've got to have those really big goals. And they're big enough goals where they kind of scare you a little bit. You're uncomfortable with it. And they have to be that big because you want it to stir you up. Your goals need to create emotion, right? And excitement. And if it doesn't create emotion and excitement, then you're not thinking big enough, first of all. But secondly, those goals are going to take time. And I think that's the beauty of writing things down, because you can track that progress. It might take 1 year, it might take 5 years, it might take 25 years to get financial freedom. But it's a worthy cause. And if you're tracking your success and you're holding yourself accountable, then it's really motivating, because you can see, hey, I'm making progress. And if I might, actually, I want to go back a little bit. We talked about financial freedom to begin with.
Yeah.
And so one thing that I just want to share, I create value for the listeners here, and this is what worked for me. I'm not a financial advisor, but I'm just sharing a kind of a best practice. It's really a simple equation on how do you get financial freedom in your life. You say it's on a spreadsheet, and the first line is, what is my current cost of living per year? Okay. So that's your car, it's your house, it's your medical expenses, your phone, whatever else. Okay. I would add on to that whatever your discretionary spending is. Snowboarding, traveling, new iPhones, whatever. Okay. So let's say that's $150,000. Say it's $100,000 is your current cost of living, and you want $50,000 of additional discretionary spending. That's $150,000. Okay. That's your financial freedom number. The next line item is simply current passive income, right? Maybe you have a condo or townhome, a rental property. Let's say it's $50,000 you have currently coming in. Okay. So the next line is financial freedom gap or the shortage, right? So in that scenario, it'd be $100,000, right? $150,000 total cost of living, financial freedom, minus $50,000 current passive income. $100,000 is needed, and that's simply saying, okay, how am I going to reverse engineer how to get $100,000 of passive recurring income? How many doors do I need? Or how many ATMs do I need, or how many self-storage units, or how much dividend-paying stocks do I need? Whatever asset you want to go after, but it's simply saying, okay, I need $100,000. How am I going to create that as recurring passive income? And again, that might be a daunting number, but fine. Take 5 years, take 30 years, whatever. But that's a worthy goal to be chasing down. And for me, it's been a really fun journey. When I was 30 years old, I did that exact same equation. And I realized, okay, I need to have 40 rental properties in order to pay for my family's cost of living. Okay. And that was important to me because I wanted to be able to have true financial freedom, which I define as being able to be doing whatever I want to be doing with people I want to be doing it with, wherever I want to be doing it. Okay. And it's not so I can be retired and laying on a beach somewhere in a hammock. It's so that I can live life on my own terms, be behind the steering wheel, and it's just a position of strength to be in. So I can go out and create value and live the life that I want to create in my life, right? And be with my family. So anyway, so that's the reason for it. And then you just, say it's $100,000 and you say, okay. So for me, it was 40 rental properties. So that was age 30. And I started working on that. It took me until age 36 to hit that number. And, and then I was like, okay, all right, well, that was fun. What's next? And for me, it was, okay, I want to have ownership in 1,000 rental doors. And so I worked, set on that mission and put a lot of work into it, and we were able to hit that, last year. And, and
December 30th.
December 30th.
Sealed the deal on the last bunch to hit 1,000.
You got it.
1,000 rental properties?
1,020, I think it's 28, something like that.
Shit.
I don't know. But my point there was, and I share that humbly, but my point there is, it's tracking that, right? Being very specific and very intentional in your approach. Now, when I share that, a lot of times guys are like, well, I don't have money to invest right now, so I'll figure that stuff out once I get some money. To me, that's completely backwards. I think that if you have a clear blueprint on what you want and how you're going to responsibly deploy your capital when you get it, there's just something special happens where that money comes to you easier. I feel like money flows to where it's going to be responsibly managed. Okay. You hear like the story about how when somebody wins the lottery or NFL players, 2 years afterwards, they're usually broke, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So NFL really stands for not for long.
Not for long.
Right. It's just because they don't have that blueprint. They don't have a responsible game plan on how they're going to responsibly steward that money. And so I just challenge people to not use that as an excuse that, hey, I don't have that yet. Get the blueprint. And in my career, I found that by having a clear blueprint was actually highly motivating for me to go out and produce more sales and more commission, because I knew that I could immediately deploy that into my blueprint, my game plan, to help fast track my outcomes that I wanted. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's the perspective I take on it when, say, I don't want to do this or do that as it relates to what my job is. It's like, well, that's one step closer to my goals. So let me get out, let me start knocking on these doors, let me go close these deals, because if I put that stuff off, my goals are going to be pushed further out, pushed further and out.
Yep.
And I don't have time for that.
It's easier to talk about the future than the present. When I have this money, I will be there. When I achieve these goals, tomorrow.
Yep, that's the trap.
Yep. Big time.
So I had something that keeps coming up over the last couple of days I wanted to ask you. Maybe we'll do one question after this so you can bounce out of here. But as long as I've known you, you you live very intentionally, and you do things only that fit into that lifestyle design that you enjoy, that you find happiness in. And I think a lot of us struggle with the happiness part of it, feeding into the illusion of the American dream, and that the happiness comes from the things that we acquire and that we're chasing. So what do you think about happiness and how that works, and where it comes from, and what's the sequence of events for our happiness?
That's a big question. I love that question. Let me take a shot at it. Personally, I think that happiness comes from being true to yourself. Like, you do what you say you're going to do, and not even publicly, but what you personally are committed to, right? You say, hey, I'm going to wake up at 6 o'clock every morning. I'm going to do that. Or I'm going to, read a book every single day, 20 minutes. I'm going to spend an hour with my children every single evening from this time. I'm going to sit down with my wife, and I'm going to do date nights every Friday night with my kids, no matter what. I'm going to do Tuesday night date nights with my kids as a top priority, right? Now, if you don't do that and you're committed to it, then it hurts your character, and that takes away your personal power. And so if somebody really wants to be, in a better spot in life and happy and in control, they need to be able to do what they commit to doing, even more importantly to themselves. So that's my first answer. The second one is, I'd say, the idea of chasing happiness. Personally, this is just me, and everybody's different, but I found that if I chase freedom and I have freedom in my life, then happiness follows. So I'm committed to having freedom in my life because I know I'll be happy. And because for me, a motivator for me is having just freedom. I feel like I'm happiest and at my best when I have that in my life. And so that's my answer on happiness. And then maybe the third thing I'd say is just, happiness is really important, but it comes from being balanced in all those different categories. This is my experience. If I'm really doing really, really good in business, I'm killing it, I'm making a ton of money, that's cool, and it's fun. But I'm not truly happy if I know that I'm not taking care of my family or spending time with my kids, or I'm not taking care of relationships with my friends, right? I'm neglecting those because I'm so focused on business. Or I'm not prioritizing my health because I'm so focused on my work. And so really it's a kind of a combination of, in my opinion, all 10 of those different categories to really have true happiness. So there's 3 answers.
Love that.
What would you say?
So I think for me, I've struggled with it a little bit just because, I've wanted so bad for years and years and years to be successful and to be somebody that people look up to. And, without ever being exposed to that, I read The Happiness Advantage recently, and I had a friend of mine send me an article that was called Life is a Single Player Game. And it was kind of that same concept that, the happiness never comes from the attainment. Even though that's kind of the illusion, what people think, and people chase it, and you see very successful people that have attained all these things and acquired lots of wealth, but they're still miserable and they have terrible habits and they treat people terribly.
There's a quote that says, happiness is not the destination, it's in the journey. Right? Mm-hmm. I've definitely found that because I hit a goal and I immediately reset the goal to something bigger through my whole life. And originally I thought, hey, I'd be really happy once I got to this level or this net worth or this income or whatever, this car, this house, I was going to be more happy. Mm-hmm. Actually, I haven't found that to be the case. To me, I'm most happy when I'm progressing, when I'm doing something I feel like I'm making a bigger impact for my friends, I'm helping create more value for other people, I'm becoming a better version of myself. That's when I'm most happy. So when I feel like 100%. I'm making forward progress and I'm up-leveling myself or up-leveling those I care about, I feel like that's when I'm most happy.
I would agree with that.
100% agree.
And I think we all, to a certain extent, get a lot of enjoyment and fulfillment and happiness out of making an impact and being a part of somebody else's growth. And what what I've gotten from this, it keeps, like when you get one of those concepts that just keeps popping up in your life, it's kind of like that synchronicity. It's trying to teach you a lesson in life. That happiness thing has been coming up to me, but enjoying the process. Like at least I do. I've kind of get impatient with myself. Like I want to get there faster. I'm doing lots of things and surrounding myself with lots of people and reading lots of books and podcasts and trying to do as many things as possible. But it can only happen so fast. And if you're too caught up in what you're doing and where you're going to enjoy the moment, you're defeating the whole purpose. Mm-hmm. If you're forgetting about what you're doing this for and those people that are important to you along the way.
Yeah, the happiest times in my life, I was bringing value to a team. I was in the military. I was wearing a uniform. I had a purpose. It's like the journey, right? Or the legend of, I think his name is Sisyphus. He's the guy in Greek mythology. He got cursed to push a boulder up a hill for eternity, and it would never reach the top. It would roll back down. And one of the philosophers, Taylor would be proud of me. The brothers Erickson, if they're listening, they'd be proud of this. But one of the philosophers said he's the happiest man because he wakes up and he has a purpose every day. And I think that's, I agree. I agree with what was been said here, man.
Yeah, and I'm glad you guys brought up that concept of, impacting people, because that's so fulfilling. And when you guys were riffing, going back on it, back and forth on it, I was going to add that in at the end, but you guys obviously covered it.
My all-time favorite business quote, and those that know me have heard this ridiculous amount of times from me, but it's from Zig Ziglar, one of the OGs in sales, and he said that you can have everything you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want. And I really believe that. So you help enough other people up level. And Gary Vee says, what does everybody else want from other people? And the answer is to help them get to the next level, help them up level, right? And so if you can, and same thing for me in my career, like, the money and the success have been fun, but the greatest fulfillment comes from seeing a bunch of people that have been able to have, the value creation for them, and that ripple effect or that trickle down effect where those guys are now, very successful sales leaders, or running their own teams, their own companies now, and to be able to have had a positive impact there, that's really, really special. Like, that's something that I think at the end of the day, when you look back at your life, there's a lot of science on this. Nobody really looks back when they're, on their deathbed and says, hey, I'm so proud of my net worth. It's really three things. It's experiences, relationships, and memories. And so I think it's important we always remember that as we operate, even in business. At the end of the day, when everything is, you look back on your life, it's about, this is my opinion, but it's about relationships, experiences, and memories. And as long as we keep that in mind, then we're going to operate a little bit differently. So it's not just about, making a ton of money, or about, the car you drive or whatever else. It's about really having a positive impact. And I think that's what creates a real legacy.
We've said impact a lot. I've heard people chase the impact, and then everything falls into place afterwards. If you're chasing the right impact, of course. There's
I
other
like
impacts that are not
Zig
good.
Ziglar quote. I'm going to have to use that one now. I've heard you say that before, but there's sometimes you're not ready to hear a message yet. That made the impact this time. Okay, so we got we're going to wrap it up here, you guys. This has been phenomenal. How do we get a hold of you again on Instagram?
Dave Allred, just Dave, Allred, Dave Allred.
Dave Allred. You guys go follow Dave Allred, and he's got so much knowledge to share, and he's more than happy. I think if you're listening to this far into it, he's already offered up his services for his lifestyle design. I would take advantage if I was you. And just one last question for you.
Hit me.
So you're about to leave forever, and you've lived a good life, but you can only leave one thing for all of us to be able to use for your kids and for the next generations. What does everybody remember Dave Allred by?
Well, the first chapter in my lifestyle design is my mission statement. So I have a full paragraph of exactly what I want out of my life. And I have guiding principles, 10 of them, and then 10 core values, and then 5 non-negotiables, things I won't do in my life. And then, believe it or not, I actually wrote my own eulogy, which I know people think, what? Why would you do that? And that's kind of a fun exercise to be able to go deep on like what you really want out of your life, right? So when you're at your funeral, what would you want your neighbors, your friends, your family, your kids to say about your life? And so I actually wrote that whole thing out. So
I think that's probably where this question came from, because I remember you telling me this before. That's perfect.
Yeah, so it's really hard to summarize in one sentence because it's actually like a whole paragraph. But yeah, at the end of the day, I want to make sure that my kids see me as a superhero, that I was able to create a ton of value for them and showing them how to live life right and truth. I want to be able to have created value for 10 million people, and I want to help 1,000 people become millionaires. And ultimately, I just want to be able to, actually, I'm launching my family foundation this year. Really excited about that. So it's the Allred Foundation. All my kids are on the board. They'll have like even my 6-year-old. She's a board member with a role in there as well. But yeah, I mean, I guess just ultimately, I'd want to be able to say that I created value for a lot of people, and that I added more value than what I took.
Well, you certainly gotten a good start on that, I would say. But would you say 1,000 millionaires?
1,000 millionaires and direct value for 10 million people.
Wow. That's big time goals.
Let's go.
Well, appreciate having you on, man.
Dude, thanks for having me, man. This is awesome.